Hi, welcome back. I'm your host, Erica Van Eaton. Today's episode is a must listen to episode. We dive in deep with the energy of 2025, how to work through it, how to stay steady, how to stay empowered, even as things are deconstructing around you or in your environment, and how to work through it in an empowered way. I'm joined by my guest again, Laura Evenson. She is a certified master coach and Akashic records reader, and she combines those to do Akashic coaching. But today we laugh, I cry, and there's just a lot of energy that you're going to get to heal and play with and hear from the council as I'm a channel. So when she is asking questions, it opens the door for me to channel the answers through. And anytime I channel, I do healing work. So all you have to do is say yes to receive the frequencies that are coming through this collective channel that is a plethora of angels, ascended masters, beings of light, and many other beings are in there. Whatever we need comes through. Whatever's for our highest and greatest good. That's my intention always, to carry the highest divine vibration. So that's the energy that is promoted then and brought forward. So thank you for playing. Thank you for being open to receiving this. I hope you find peace in this and feel free to share it with whomever is needing to hear it. So play with us, have fun. In one of the earlier podcasts, I talked about how the energy of 2025 feels very chaotic. And so far, we're heading into March. Well, we're halfway through March. And that's proven to be the case here, at least in the United States. But, it's affecting worldwide. The things that are happening in our own government system, there's a lot of people that are losing jobs. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of deconstruction that's occurring. And it can be difficult to find a place of neutrality, to not add into the fear, not add into the chaos. And that's going to be the topic of today's discussion. How can we find neutrality without being complacent?
Right. Last month,
Yeah.
we were talking about how, there's not really right and wrong. And so when you think about neutrality and the positive and negative forces that we have, and we're seeing things collapsing and know that things have to collapse in order to renew themselves and rebuild as something different. Mm-hmm. But in the collapse of everything, when we're in it and we're being affected by it, which there are so many that are, how do we stay calm knowing that this is for the higher and best of everybody?
It's really the intention that we set, because as things are collapsing, if we're looking at the people who are collapsing the systems, are they heart-centered or are they doing it from their mind? And we can see right now a lot of stuff is being done from mind and not from heart. So the collapsing itself, if we allowed for them to rebuild, it's still going to be from mind and it's not going to be heart centered. And we're wanting as a collective to move into more of a unity consciousness, a higher level of consciousness, something that is more filled with divine love, frequency, something that is filled with more peace, frequency. And we can't do that from mind. It has to be heart centered because divine love resides in your heart. So it's a matter of getting creative with your energy. You're going to feel a myriad of things as you see and are affected by the worldwide events. Me personally, I have a son with Down syndrome and autism, and some of those programs are under fire right now. And so his future and the future for others like him is pretty unsteady. And so that is a very personal effect that I have. And so, of course, I'm going to move through anger. And of course, on a human level, I'm going to move through fear. But the question is, what do I do with that energy? And bringing it back into a place of neutrality actually frees up all this energy and all the emotions that I felt and am feeling, so that I can create a new vision. And that new vision is what I hold to manifest, to put something, energy in a direction of something better than what it has been.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but when you are so emotionally charged about something,
Mhm.
like as a parent of your son, and you see that, things are not fair for him and so many, how do you stay in that neutral place without, going extreme to the other side because it's so upsetting?
These are really good questions for all of us because a lot of people are losing jobs, they're losing their livelihood, and the floor's literally been ripped out from underneath of them. And where do we go from there? And it's not being complacent. So if we look at, you know, let's say the Holocaust, there was a sense of complacency in that country. They took what the government was doing and they allowed for it to happen. They went along with it. They didn't voice it. And it wasn't until it got to a certain point that people started unifying behind the scenes, growing a voice, and then going in to stop the slaughtering. The same thing happens, and I'm not saying, we're putting people in gas chambers here, but it's a collapsing and a deconstructing so we can build something new. It's not about being complacent with the energy or denying anger, because if we deny our anger or our fear, then that is going to create more resistance within our bodies and our ability to have clarity with how we would like to rebuild, how we would like for things to have greater equality and greater expansion. So, deep breath work is really required, and catching yourself in the moment and just be consciously aware of, like, okay, I'm human. I am really upset right now at what I am seeing, at what I am feeling. I'm allowed to have those feelings. If I shout those feelings out, I'm feeding the old system that's in place because it's being collapsed with that same kind of energy, with this disregard for human life, right? This disregard for unity and seeing another person as a soul.
Mm-hmm.
That's mind. So it's catching yourself and allowing yourself to feel everything, but then taking a moment, taking however many moments it takes to breathe and collect your energy back into your root and breathe it up into your heart, because that is the only way that we can really stop the chemical cycle from going around and around in our minds and in our bodies, is through that breath. It gives pause, and with the longer that we hold a pause or that we can live in a pause, the more clarity our mind's going to have, and then we know it, we can have inspired action then. And how do we want to move forward with this? Who do I want to contact? Who do I, or what programs do I want to donate to or amplify, or whatever it is? What ideas do you have? New ideas will arise in the pause. It's not saying that we're not going to get sucked into the fear of losing everything or the fear of stability or anger or grief or shame or whatever. We're going to have that, but it's creating a pause for yourself. And really, sometimes the only way that we can create that pause is through breath, taking a breath. Or maybe you just need to go outside and go for a walk, or maybe you need to run it out, or maybe you need to yoga it out, or maybe you need to scream it into a pillow, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Anything that can get that energy flowing and that thing moving up and out of you, so that you're not screaming at people, not yelling at people, or not typing angrily on the keyboard.
And adding to the energy of it
Yeah.
that we
But it's
don't.
also, yeah, but it's also about not being complacent either and just sitting back and watching it all unfold. We do observe, but what do you want it to become next? So what do we want to happen next? We see that that's not heart centered, that's mind centered. Okay. Well, what would a heart centered government system look like? What would a heart centered community operate like? Okay, I'm going to start visualizing and playing with that. I'm going to start looking for that kind of evidence in my environment or in my community, and I'm going to amplify that.
Yeah. That's interesting. As I was listening, I am actually not affected by what's going on. I don't have a job that's affected by the government right now. And I do have friends who are in that realm of, working at a VA hospital or whatever government job, and they see people that are hurting. I mean, to the extent of, suicide, you
Yeah.
know, and how can we, the people that are outside of the bubble and don't see how damaging this is and how hurtful this is for people, how can we have a better understanding, and how do we get involved?
It can be beneficial that you don't feel everything that some of us that are in the bubble feel, because you can help hold a higher vibrational frequency for us. And sometimes you can have a little bit more clarity because you're not going on the emotional roller coaster of like having to work through things. So it can give you the ability, if you allow yourself, to not feel guilty that you're not experiencing the same kind of pain that your friends are,
Mm.
or shame that you have stability when others don't, because that can come into play when there's people suffering and you're not. Of reorganizing and saying, okay, how can I know this situation differently? Where is my energy best utilized? Who do I need to send love to? What organizations can I promote? And some of that will allow you to lend, a helping hand without having to work through the same emotions. Just because you're not working through the same emotions doesn't mean that you're not helping. You can understand and have compassion for someone. Compassion is more like kindness and action. I had someone tell me that once, and I thought it was brilliant because it's not feeding into what they're feeling. Empathy, like, I feel what you feel, like I do in a session. I feel what you feel, but it's more, I'm holding space for you to feel whatever it is you feel without any kind of judgment, without any kind of wrong, right, bad, good, left, right, whatever. I'm just allowing you to feel what you feel. And I'm here for you if you want to talk it out and hold space by just being quiet and holding love and gratitude within me. Because if I'm holding that kind of peace and that kind of harmony, then I'm radiating that out and I'm gifting that to everyone in my environment.
Yeah, and it's so supportive for that person rather than collapsing in with them and taking on all of that pain for them. That just doesn't help anyone. And I myself used to think that I was doing something good for people by doing that, by taking on their pain. And what I've learned is that it just creates a situation where they have to go through something else. And I think talking to, my friends who are involved in what's happening with people losing their jobs, from a spiritual standpoint, I felt like I was getting kind of insensitive, where I was like, well, that's part of their journey, to lose that job. So how can we remain sensitive when people are right in the middle of, they're being caught in the middle of this collapsing of the chaos?
Neutrality is a double edged sword. We can be too neutral in our observation and thinking that whatever's happening over here doesn't affect us, but the ripple effect does affect us. And it doesn't just affect us, it affects everyone on the planet, because everything is woven into this energy field. Everything. So, witnessing someone go through pain, you realize, okay, it goes back to, are they in pain because they are experiencing the consequence of someone not being heart centered? And yeah, maybe there was a soul agreement for them to lose their job, but why? Is
Mm-hmm.
it because they're wanting to show where systems are broken? Is it because they're wanting to be pushed to the point where they stand up in an empowered way and say, this isn't okay with how we treat people, how we destabilize people? I want it to be like this instead. It can be very empowering. So we want to be neutral without complacency. So it's
Mm-hmm.
when those two things are added together, really bad things can happen. It's like a mudslide. Neutrality with intention holds a lot more beneficial energy because it's allowing the energy to move in a direction that's more heart centered if that's your intention. So it's coming at it with the intention of, okay, I'm going to stay neutral and understand that everything is happening for a reason. Things needed to be shifted around, but wouldn't it be nice if it was happening from a heart centered space? If it was happening from a heart centered space, what would that look like?
Mm-hmm.
What would that feel like? How would that play in with me, with this other person? What would our experiences be like then? So it's whatever you marry neutrality with that's either going to be a downslide or an up.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of, if you look back on your life and you look at the hard times that you've had, if you look at it in the sense of where's the gift in it? What did that thing cause you to then move forward to do? So it kind of reminds me of that as you were, touching on, you know, the people that are going through these things and what would be the reasoning for their soul to want this? What type of growth are they looking for? So for the people that are in the midst of it and are just overcome with emotion, how do they start to begin to grasp that side of it?
Well, you have two options. You can either be victim to it or you can be empowered by it. If I'm going to be victim to it, then it's going to put me on the downhill slide, right? I'm not
Mhm.
going to try to come up with new ideas. I'm not going to look for a different kind of experience. I'm just going to see everything that I'm losing. If I'm empowered by this experience that feels like trash, then I'm going to start to speak from my heart space about what I feel and know would be expansive. I'm going to start to speak and look for opportunity to expand. Yeah.
So I imagine if I was one of those people that I would be somewhat locked in fear. If I was about to lose my job or I had just lost my job, I might be snowballing like, how am I going to make money? What am I going to do? How am I going to support my family? There's people with sick children that were relying on their medical insurance.
Yep.
So when you're so deep in it, I feel like it's so difficult to have the presence of mind to turn it around. So what would be like the first step for them when they feel like they're just underwater?
All we can do is breathe. A personal story that I don't share very often is um, when my oldest was starting school and he was going through an extremely rough time because the frequencies were so different from what he felt at home versus what he felt at school. And I was having to pick him up early pretty much every day because he was having meltdowns. And then during that time, I had another son and then I had a miscarriage. And I felt like the biggest failure on earth. I felt nothing but shame. And I was in a depressive state. The only thing I could do to get out of it was begin to breathe. That was the only thing I could do. And that changed everything for me because it started giving me pause from the critic in my head saying I was the worst person ever. So it'd be the same as saying, the world is ending. My family's going to go bankrupt. I'm going to lose everything. And
Mm-hmm.
there are people that are going to go bankrupt and they are going to lose everything. But the only thing that they have power over is their internal energy, their internal emotional state. And the only way that they can have any kind of power over that when everything around them is crumbling is to breathe. You have power over your breath. And when you change your breath, it changes your emotional state. And only when you have a more neutral, more harmonious emotional state can you allow more harmonious to come into your life.
Mhm.
So it has to come down to a place of no matter freaking what, I am going to be in charge of my internal emotional state. You have to light your own fire. Nobody else can do that for you. There's no magic pill. Well, there are
Right.
pills to numb you. And sometimes people need that for a little while. But through the breath is the only way that we can really begin to self regulate when everything is slipping.
So it taps into the law of attraction. So if you are spiraling down, you're just going to attract more of the same to come in, which is a kind of a scary thought for somebody
Yeah.
who is going through a lot.
Yeah.
So to turn things around and to breathe and to come into a more coherent state helps you begin to attract the positive things that you're wanting, like, a new job that you're much happier at.
Yeah.
So in that way, can you speak to how do we do that? How do we begin to change our vibrational state so that we are attracting the things that we want into our life during the chaotic times?
Through the breath. These are choice points. So people usually think, okay, Earth is free will. We have all these choices, but we have these planned out life experiences. You know, when I had my oldest son and we didn't know his diagnosis until he was born, I had a choice point after he was born and we received that diagnosis. I could listen to what everyone else said that he could do. I could listen to what I read or what I knew from growing up. I could listen to all that. Or I could choose to believe that this was a brilliant being of light in front of me, that I had a lot to learn from him, and that I was going to show the world the brilliant being of light that he was. I had a choice how to move through that. The experience that was on my life plan, like nothing was going to change that.
Hmm.
My choice, my free will was how I moved through it. And I chose exit B instead of exit A. So you, everyone on the planet right now has a choice point. What do you want to experience? I want this. I want to see a world in which we are taking care of and loving our neighbor. I would love to see that. I would love to see a world in which we care for our disabled and our elderly. I would love that. I would love to
Hmm.
not have to see an 80-year-old in the checkout, like working checkout at the grocery store because they can't pay for their medications. I would love to see a different world in
Right.
which we are caring for each other. So if that's my vision, then I'm going to do whatever I can do, utilize this energy to promote that because each one of us are trillions of atoms of energy. Do you know how much energy that is? That is so much energy that we can create and move mountains with. Jesus said that we can move mountains, right? We literally can because we have that much energy, but it's a choice. It's
Hmm.
always a choice. Am I going to be victim to or am I going to be empowered by? It's a choice. And sometimes when we are in so much pain, because pain speaks really loud, we can't see that we have a free will choice. But if we can remember that the only reason why pain is screaming so loud and seems so prevalent is because the energy of pain, the energy of negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions, the vibrational wave, they're chaotic. So they're like creating these little explosions in your body and they're sticky instead of flowing through like joy, like
Hmm.
something that's harmonic that are just like floating through you. They stick to you and they scream in your brain and they scream in your body and they become really overwhelming. So if I can remember, uh, I have free will. It's only screaming loud because it's chaotic. It doesn't hold any more power than joy or than harmony.
Hmm.
It's the same.
So if we're experiencing negative versus positive, um, I've learned that we can bring any energy into our heart to have it neutralized.
Hmm.
So would it be appropriate in those moments to breathe and imagine all of that energy going into your heart and then using it in a different way? Like, how would that look? And how can people do that?
Yeah, I call it like the art of self consumption. It really is an art. I have people start in their root. The reason why is because those lower three energy centers are where we feel most emotion. You feel tight in your gut, you feel sick to your stomach, right? You feel angry and your stomach is clenched up, your guts are clenched up. We want to involve those nerve plexuses. In your root, you have the inferior mesenteric nerve plexus, and the sacral, you have the superior, and the solar plexus, you have the celiac nerve plexus. Those emotions are going to originate down in the gut area. So if we feel really pissed off, if we are feeling like the world is falling apart, feel it, use your breath, pull that back up through the chakra system, pull it up into the heart. And we're one, creating a sense of safety for your body physiologically. When we take a deep breath, we're saying, no matter what's going on right now, it's a natural response. If I have time to take a deep breath, I know that I'm safe in this moment. And then if I pull that with intention, energy goes where attention goes. So if I pull that up to the sacral, so like right below your belly button, if I intentionally breathe that then up through the solar plexus, your celiac nerve plexus, if I intentionally keep breathing that up, one, I'm telling each nerve plexus that I'm safe. So those alone will start releasing calming hormones and chemicals to your body. And they're going to start communicating in a harmonious way. We're building bridges. And so by the time this information gets to your heart, even if it started out as shame or complete despair, even if it started out at that, if we are creating a sense of safety through that breath and intentionally building this up into the heart space, it neutralizes, it comes back into the space of divine love
Hmm.
because we have built the chemical structure for it to do so. So now you have all of this energy, this just unburdened, free energy to create and play with in the quantum field. Okay, so then you turn on your movie screen. What do I want to create? Again, it's not complacency, it's about intention. What do I want to experience? Don't focus on like what you don't want to experience. We already know that. We felt that. We're seeing that all over the place. What do you want to experience? I want to experience this. I want to see this when I look outside. I want to feel this when I step into the store. That's the vision that I'm going to start seeing. That's the vision that I'm going to start promoting and going to start expanding.
Yeah, and you want to be able to see it to create a feeling, the feeling that you want, which would be a community filled with love. So you want to create that vision in your mind with all of your senses, and you want to feel that community of love
Yeah,
in order for it to start coming to you. Is that correct? Do I like?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because, like you referenced before, the law of attraction, that really is the law of attraction. Like attracts like, meaning whatever vibration you're putting out into the world, it's going to find liked vibrational threads, like string
Mhm.
theory. It's going to find like vibrational strings and connect into those, and then they bond. And then you start pulling in this new reality into your field and helping to promote and create that.
Yeah. So for the people that are in the midst of it, so they need to take a breath, think about. what exactly they're wanting, create that vision that will, I can feel my heart expanding, that will come with that feeling state that they're looking for. And by doing that, they will begin to attract the things that they want into their life.
Yes. Perfect. Write that out and email that to everybody. Yes.
Because I imagine there's people being like, there's skeptics out there, you know. Um, what would you say to somebody who's like, breathing is not going to get me a new job? Like, come on.
Let me tell you what won't get you a new job. If you're in a chaotic baited state, like if your energy's on the outside of your brain and you're running those brainwave patterns, you don't have clarity. That's not where you get aha. You can't see new opportunities because you're still running the old neural pathways that can only see one thing. You have a reticular activating system that encompasses your brain that is entrained to see what makes you feel safe. Well, if this old way of doing things is what makes you feel safe, then you're going to continue to just see that. And as that's crumbling, your brain's going to start trying to grasp onto anything because it can't see anything that's familiar. So now is your perfect opportunity to build what you want your brain to see. A very simple example of that is I want to go out and buy a new red car. This is a terrible example because people are losing a lot, but let's just say you want to go out and buy a red new car.
Mm.
And you never thought about that before. You never really saw them driving around before. But now that you have decided that's what you want, everywhere you look, you're seeing red cars driving around. You didn't see them before, but you see them now everywhere because your brain, your reticular activating system is looking for evidence
Mm-hmm.
to show you that it's real, to show you that it's there, to support that.
Yeah. And that's happened to me. I remember when I was trying to get pregnant and I was not getting pregnant. And every time I would go to the grocery store, it was filled with pregnant women and children.
And you're like, oh my God, why can't I just be one of these women? But it's showing you that it's real. It's showing you that it's there. It's showing that it's possible for you. So we can't see what we can't attune to. And so we can be skeptics all day long, but how's that working for you? Do you feel good about that? Is that making you feel better or is that dragging you down the hole more? It's time for us to really start thinking in terms of energy. Everything is energy. That's indisputable. We
Mm-hmm.
know that. We know too for a fact that there's an energy field that connects everything that we are woven into and a part of. So we know that everything is connected.
Right. And everything is like coming in waves of that negative and positive, so
Mhm.
that it helps to help understand it's not going to be like this forever too. You
It
know, there
isn't.
is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Unless we play victim to it and stay complacent, then we're just going to recreate more crap. But if we empowered sovereignly, so this is all about sovereignty right now. And sovereignty doesn't mean not unity consciousness. It actually leads into unity consciousness. It's about being sovereign over your internal emotional state and releasing codependency on structures to make you feel safe, to give you identity, to give you place and value in the world. That all has to come from within.
Mm-hmm.
So being broken down, perfect opportunity for you to become sovereign. Because if I'm in a sovereign place and I'm breathing in whatever it is I'm feeling and I'm bringing my energy back up through me and then I'm creating something new with it, something beautiful with it, I'm not judging you for whatever space you're in or for whatever you're feeling or whatever your vision wants to be. I'm holding space for you with love and compassion to
Mm-hmm.
experience whatever it is you're experiencing. But I am elevating your energy field because my energy is so high. It can't help but be a platform to raise you up to. I'm doing that with still allowing you to be in your own pain or joy.
Yeah, it sounds like that unity consciousness. You're accepting me for who I am
Yeah,
as a projection of you.
that's exactly what it is. And so, sovereignty, consuming your own energy, consuming your own emotions, consuming your own thought, you stop projecting and you just start accepting, holding space for those around you. Doesn't mean that you agree with everyone around you. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that you are complacent to people's ideals, but it does give you clear vision of, you know what, they're not heart centered. That doesn't make them bad. They're just stuck in their head. And so they're kind of stuck in this chaotic vibrational state. Isn't that interesting? That's not where I want to be. That's not what I want to promote. So I'm going to bring energy back up into me again, and I'm going to visualize something more beautiful, something more healing, something more peace filled.
Right. So they're just showing you a different perspective that you're not choosing.
Mm-hmm.
You're choosing something different for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think I've learned um, to view things so differently in the way of like other people are on a different journey. And that's helped a lot. Like not everybody is here to be an awakened soul,
Yep.
and to just meet them where they're at. That does give you acceptance then, when you arrive that way, knowing that we're not all going to be on the same page. We're not all looking for the same journey. We're not on the same journey. What would you say to people that are seeing others who are agreeing with what's going on? How do we find that neutral space with them?
Isn't that tough? That's really tough. That comes into not being complacent. You see that they too are not being heart centered, and it's not just allowing them to have their voice with you not saying anything. It's you standing up and then being empowered to voice what you feel, what you see, what you would like to experience. And
Right.
that's where, if we get complacent, that energy builds. We allow them to have their thoughts, their feelings. We can witness that, but we can also express what it is we want to express at the same time.
So, what if we're speaking to somebody and we know that um, we're at opposite ends of the spectrum, and if we express what we wanted to, we would get in a very huge conflict. I'm just thinking of a specific person, but um, and so is it okay then in that situation if it's just going to stir up a bunch of negative energy if you choose to nod your head? Is that being complacent, or it's choosing to keep my mouth shut because I know whatever I say is not going to change that person's mind? So,
It's not about changing that person's mind, and that's where the energy can be different. It's about finding the courage within yourself to say, I understand you feel that way. I understand that that's how you see things, but that's not how I feel it. That's not what feels expansive to me. So you can have your opinion, but mine is different. And if we say that while we're consuming our own stuff, we're not projecting onto them. So if they get triggered, they get triggered. And that's okay because they're needing to figure some stuff out. Now, if you're in a place of getting enraged while this other person is spewing their whatever,
mhm.
you need to take a beat because then things are going to escalate. So here's an example from a long time ago that has nothing to do with going on right now. But one time I was in a park and my kids were playing, and there was this guy that had carved a kayak out of a tree, and it was gorgeous. And I went over there to look at it, and there was a woman there, and she was like fluttering around, and she was happy. And I was like, oh, I just started talking to her, and she's like, oh, have you found Jesus? Like, I couldn't find something that wasn't lost. No, I didn't say that. I was like, I was like, Well, that's part of who I am. Like, that's not something that I see outside of me. That's part of who I am. And she's like, well, no. And she started kind of like going into this whole thing of like, Jesus is the only way. And I said, well, if that brings you comfort, that's wonderful. But I've meditated with Buddha and I've felt amazing, beautiful, peaceful things. That's an aspect of God to me.
Mm-hmm.
And she was getting really flustered, but that's okay. I just stayed very calm in my body. And I said, I reassured her, you're free to feel that way. If that is what changed your life, is if that's what brought you peace, beautiful. I just understand things from a different perspective than you. And she was flustered, but I stayed so calm in that moment. And I just thanked her for the conversation and then I walked away. It's okay that she was triggered. That wasn't me being confrontational. That was me standing in my power and speaking the wisdom that I know to be true.
Okay, that is definitely something that I'm in the process of working on. I feel like I'm not quite there where I do shy away from conflict. Like I'm definitely not in a place of where you are. And I want to head that way. But even watching the news and watching horrible things that are happening and the details, the gory details that come through end up sticking in my head for a long period of time
Mm-hmm.
to where I want to avoid the news.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if I avoid the news, I'm partially sticking my head in the sand. So where is the happy medium where I'm not taking on all of this negativity from the news stories and what's happening negatively in the world? How do I take all that on and remain in a neutral place for myself that is healthy?
You literally have to put a shield up. Inside the news stories are like these hooks, and they hook on pain points. We know that. Like any thread that you have of still past traumas, of still past shames, and we all have them. The threads are the kind of the same, and these stories like latch onto that, and then it amplifies that. Why? Because pain speaks really loud because it's so chaotic. So, for example, the other day, I read an article about kids with disabilities in Alabama not being able to go to school because the funding's froze. Oh, of course, that's going to knock my heart out. Of course, I feel everything for that. So, what can I do? I'm going to breathe through it. I'm going to feel what I want to feel. And even now, it brings tears to my eyes.
Mm. Yeah, it's tough.
Now, I mean, a minute.
Yeah. Anytime kids are affected and hurt or harmed is just a killer. It's just not right.
And I think that particularly is really difficult because these kids live in unity consciousness.
Mm,
They would never project onto somebody else. So it's always ironic to me that so much trash is projected onto them, to
mm,
people with differences, when they would never do that to anyone else.
right.
But so
They're
I'm going
just
to feel, I'm going to be human, I'm going to feel them. What am I going to do with it?
mm,
Well, I'm going to go on and talk on my podcast and I'm going to tell people how to work through their emotions, how to choose empowerment, how to get to the point where they can feel empowered and choose empowerment over victimhood or disempowerment, how to take control of their internal emotional state so that they can create a different reticular activating system that sees abundance and opportunity and peace and these different kinds of things that we want to promote. That's how I'm going to press forward with that. So in the news, we do want to be informed because so much is happening so fast right now.
right.
We can put our heads in the sand and that's fine, but if we want to be able to hold a different picture, then literally put like a golden screen over the front of whatever device you're watching or reading, so that energy can't penetrate your energy field, but it's going to give you distance from it so that you can read it from a place of observation. And go back through some of the old podcast episodes where we're working on your electromagnetic field, making it really strong, consuming your own energy to create a stable boundary for you. Because if you're really in a place of self consumption and you're running your energy up through you and all around you, really creating this strong toroidal field of energy where energy is going up through you and all around you and down through you and all around you, and you're centered and you're steady and your heart is open to yourself, to your own energy, then whatever you read is not going to affect you as much, because that energy can't come in, because you have created an empowered state within yourself.
Okay, so as we're watching the news, put an energetic golden shield in between yourself and the wherever the news is coming from.
Yeah. And if you have time before you even do the shield, utilize your breath to bring the energy up through you and let it go down all around you, really to get your energy flowing in a solid pattern, because you have an electromagnetic field that you reside within that's part of you. So does the earth. And if everything within you is in an organized flow state, then you're in a really harmonious, grounded state, which is going to give you distance from chaos. They're more likely going to bounce off your field than to come into your field, because you're empowered in that moment. And then you can put a golden shield up before you watch anything.
Okay. And is it even more powerful to change directions as well, or do you not need to do that?
Yeah. So I always talk about going down because everyone wants to go up, up, up. Go down and up and around you, then back in through your crown. So you have energy going that way, but you also have energy going up through you to the top of your energy field and then flowing down all around you, back up through your feet and back up into your heart. So it's going both directions all the time.
Simultaneously.
Simultaneously, yes.
I didn't realize that. I just learned something new. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look up a picture of the toroidal field and you'll see like simultaneously things are moving up
Okay.
and down.
Okay. Yeah, I this is a much longer conversation about vortexes, so I'll
Yeah.
see you won't.
Next time. Thank you. Thank you for asking these questions. Thank you for staying grounded through the conversation. Thank you for staying so present with your friends.
Thank you
And
for all the
I think
wonderful.
that's invaluable, because you're holding space. You're holding space and you're staying coherent. And that ripple effect is huge.
Well, thank you for all of the wonderful information today. I've learned a lot, and I always enjoy speaking with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing. Please share if you feel like others could use the information. And I'll put Laura's information down below. She's an amazing Akashic coach and very grounded, very practical. Love her. So thank you for joining with us, and we will see you next week.
Bye.